If you've ever night-navved without a light source or night vision with no illumination from the moon, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Guys, like and comment. The comment section is slightly out of control. Don't be too crazy, but get in there and make it a little bit crazy. If you guys are looking to support the channel, the biggest support of the channel right now is Big Daddy Unlimited. Big Daddy Unlimited is like the Costco of the gun world. 99 cents for the first month. Is it worth it? Are you worth it? Guys, we of course have other sponsors such as Enforce USCCA with their concealed carry insurance, and of course, Phalanx Defense with their maritime body armor that can float. So definitely go give those guys a look-see, check them out. Cool companies, a big thank you to them for sponsoring this video. Ladies, gentlemen, and my often forgotten but most certainly not by me, M67 grenades, welcome to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about a very cool pistol. Thank you, ATF. We have the Heckler & Koch SP5K. Now, if you know anything about this particular firearm, you know that in 2016, Heckler & Koch imported another version of this that was heavily bastardized. It didn't have a correct end cap, it didn't have a paddle magazine release, and in many ways, H&K had to do a lot of things to be able to import it. And because of that, not a whole lot of people liked it. But last year, Heckler & Koch imported the SP5. I did a video on that. It is literally an unbastardized MP5 with a couple minor changes for the civilian market as the ATF requires, but other than that, you're getting the real deal from Heckler & Koch, and that is absolutely the case with the SP5K, which is a almost exact replica of the MP5K minus the full auto abilities and some changes to the lower, so it's not easily convertible. Thank you, ATF, again for being super gay. But otherwise, we have pretty much the real deal from Heckler & Koch. So before we get into this, let's talk a little bit about my relationship with Heckler & Koch before we do into the review and any possible issues that might cause. So first off, I have done many reviews for Heckler & Koch and on many H&K guns. It's well known that I like H&K firearms. Despite that, I try to be as unbiased as possible when I do my reviews. Now, in the case of this review, they sent the gun to me for review. The ammunition was provided for by Big Daddy Unlimited. Big thank you to them. But otherwise, no exchange of money. Of course, exchange of the firearm for the review and that type of stuff. But that's pretty common nowadays. Usually ammunition is covered by the company, but things being what they are right now, we're kind of having to make do with what we have. So when it comes to the MP5K, it's a very interesting design. In this case, the SP5K, because what H&K could have done is they could have taken the venerable MP5, or in this case an SP5, and they could have simply shortened the barrel. But that is not the case with what they did with the MP5K or the SP5K. Rather, what they did is they both shortened the barrel, shortened the bolt, shortened the action and the receiver, so everything is shorter. So with the SP5K, we have a very small package. So with the brace collapse, we have a 13.8 inch total firearm on length. We have 5.8 inches on the barrel with a 4.2 pound unloaded weapon. Very, very small. Sure, there are lighter and smaller guns nowadays, but for the time, it was excellent. Now, the only problem that you run into, in my mind, with the SP5K is the price. This is a very pricey weapon. This costs around $2,700. Street price maybe a little bit less, maybe a little bit more, especially right now with everything being as crazy as it is. But it makes it harder to swallow to buy this gun with the price being what it is, especially when you can get firearms that function just as well, that are about just as small, that are more modern. So we'll talk about that going into this. But no matter what, the MP5K, SP5K is a very, very iconic looking weapon, and there's something very cool about it, just like any MP5 type. So without further ado, we're going to get into this weapon. We're going to talk about all the specifics of it, and we're going to start, as we always do, tip to butt like we normally do. So to start off with, we have a HK Navy style barrel right here. So we have both a thread adapter for threading on suppressors and a tri-lug adapter for any type of suppressor that takes a tri-lug attachment. Now, for me, I prefer to have the tri-lug attachment, both because it both covers the barrel and fits it up snug, just a little bit less overall length overall. So today we're going to talk a little bit about the Zenith D9Z. So that is the suppressor that I have right here. It is a tri-lug suppressor. It's kind of interesting. I've done a lot of shooting with this particular suppressor on various roller delayed weapons. So it was made by Acadia Defense specifically for the purpose of working on roller delayed weapons. So it doesn't use a traditional baffle design. Because of that, you have very low blowback and very minimal increase in carrier speed on roller delayed weapons. So a very cool design. Wanted to give it a quick shout out because I really like what they've done. I know a lot of people have some problems with Zenith. Despite that, they do have a good product. I think it's around 7-ish hundred, 8-ish hundred approximately for the suppressor, but pretty cool little design right there. So definitely works very well in roller delayed weapons. It is also ridiculously quiet and also enhances the accuracy just like many other suppressors do. So good on Zenith for coming out with that. That is a very cool suppressor design right there. So we have that. Going into from the tip down to the barrel, we do have a phenomenally well-built barrel directly from H&K. We have a hammer-forged barrel. H&K barrels are known for being just made of the best metals, just extremely well made. You have fluting in the chamber to ensure reliable extraction with the roller delay design. The barrel is very, very accurate, and that owes both to the barrel and the action itself. So as has become my standard procedure when shooting any gun, I took it out to 120, and there's absolutely no problems making impacts at 120 yards with this particular firearm. Very accurate. I doubt you'll have any problems within the usable window of 9mm as far as the effective range. Now, we can't talk about everything without mentioning roller delayed. So a lot of people don't understand a lot of the hype behind the MP5K, MP5, and all that type of stuff. Well, the reason is that they use a roller delayed system. What's so good about the roller delayed system is many 9mm type weapons use a direct blowback system. It's reliable, that functions well. However, it requires a lot of weight in the bolt, which adds a lot more recoil than what it should have. And people say, well, it's still 9mm, how much recoil can it have? Actually, it has more recoil than a 5.56. So at that point, I don't really understand the point of owning a 9mm subgun that has more recoil than a 5.56 gun when I could get a 5.56 weapon in about the same barrel length and have a much more effective weapon. If it's going to be 9mm, it should recoil less. Now, not a whole lot of pistol caliber carbines utilize a different type of action in order to bring down the recoil. MP5s do, a couple others, SIG MPXs do. But in the case of the MP5, MP5K, they use a roller delayed action. The bolt is very light. Now, when it comes to the MP5K, the bolt is very light because it's both smaller and shorter than the MP5. So because of that, you have a very pleasant recoil impulse. Now, I'll be quick to point out that the recoil impulse on the MP5K SP5K is more stout than the MP5. Now, that isn't saying much, as the MP5 has very minimal recoil. But when you compare it to weapons that are very close to the MP5, like the SIG MPX, the MPX actually has a little bit less recoil than the SP5K, so it sits right between the SP5 and the SP5K. So the SIG is a good firearm, but in any case, given the size of this weapon, that is very cool as far as the recoil is concerned, but bigger than that is reliability. I do believe the H&K SP5K to be a more reliable weapon long term. There are some issues right now with current gen MPXs with some piston issues. You don't have those issues with the MP5K, as it is a very well proven design that has been used throughout the world by a variety of special operation units, by a variety of police forces, civilians, whomever, to wage war and deal death and shoot competitions and everything. So it is a very well-lauded platform just because of the amount of time it's had and due to the precise engineering by H&K in making this a phenomenally well-built and reliable weapon. Now, moving from the action, we of course have the finger stop right there. That's to ensure with such a short barrel that your hand doesn't slip past and you don't blow your fingers completely off. So that's something that I would have put in had it not been there. So perfect there. I do wish it had, of course, the classic MP5K foregrip. However, due to super stupid ATF rules, we cannot have those because somehow that turns us into something other than a pistol. SBR laws are so stupid. But if you get this as an SBR, and you get that Form 1 or what have you, you can add that very nice little grip right in there and you can have the classic SP5K look. Now, handguards are very easy to swap out. It is one pin, so if you want to put in an M-lock handguard or anything like that, you can easily swap swap this out. Now, of course, if you change anything on this weapon and make it look anything more high-tech than it should beyond an optic, you're of course committing blasphemy, but that's okay. You can repent for that later. Moving from the handguard, front sight. So the front sight post is the classic H&K hooded front sight, famous sight picture. Moving back to the rear. So this is my first problem with the SP5K. Because these are pistols, they had to ship them with a U-notch rear sight. Those are less than ideal in my opinion. I think that the normal peep sight from H&K for the drum is much better. So luckily they are very easy to change out, and it's only like 14 bucks for one of the rear sights. So I did that. Big thank you to James Williamson again, as he always advises me on H&K weapons. But in any case, I wish it would ship with the peep sights. I understand why it doesn't due to importation laws. And again, I mostly blame the ATF for everything, for all my problems pretty much. So damn you ATF, damn you. On the receiver right here, you can see that we do have a spot to add some type of rail. In this case, I have a very low profile, very minimalistic design in order to mount some type of low red dot. In this case, we have a Trijicon MRO. Now, I would recommend perhaps getting a fuller length rail, although it would add more weight. I think it's advantageous to have the dot a little bit further back than where I have mine, because when you're using the charging handle, it kind of does get in the way. It's not that big of a deal, kind of the way I'm using this particular weapon. But I think it would be advantageous to have this just a little bit back so I have a little bit more clearance for the charging handle. Now, speaking of the charging handle on the SP5K, MP5K is of course famous. It's pulled back in order to actuate the system and then can be locked up in order to perform magazine changes. Now, the consistent problem for MP5s and MP5Ks is that with a full magazine cannot be locked into place on a bolt which is forward, which means that if you have a 30 round magazine with 30 rounds in there, you have to lock the bolt up and then of course insert your full magazine, and then of course you drop it, whether it be by slapping it or whether you actuate it with your thumb. So that is kind of an annoyance with the MP5, MP5K manual of arms, but it's just kind of a little bit of a quirk of the system. Of course, if you downgrade your magazines to 28, 29 rounds, then your reload is simply popping out the old one, popping a new one, and simply charging the charging handle, and you have loaded a round. But most people tend to like to have that full 30 rounds, so because of that, they do the lock back technique, as do I, but there are many different ways to reload the MP5K. Moving on to the main receiver, you see that we have these grooves right here. So there are a variety of stock designs where the rails on the stocks ride right in there, so they collapse all the way in. Among the most famous, of course, is the B&T with their brand new telescoping stock. Unfortunately, I was not able to get my hands on them because they are literally sold out everywhere. I tried to push every connection I had, was not able to get it, but we'll show a picture of them. A very cool stock design for the MP5K. Tons of different stock designs. You have, M1913 rail designs, classic MP5K stocks, and all that type of stuff. Find the stock design that works for you, but just so you know, you can fit a variety of stocks on there. All right, moving down to the magazine. So one thing that the original SP5K had problems with was that H&K was not able to import it with the paddle release, because apparently that makes this a very dangerous weapon. So because of that, you had the simple button release, which is kind of a bitch to actuate. So most people tend to run off the paddle. But as you know, with the MP5K, it's kind of hard to get these to drop free. It doesn't really do it that well. The magazines don't like to. So generally people do rip out the magazines when they perform the magazine reloads. And it's often overlooked, but a magazine has as much to do with the reliability of a firearm as does the action itself. I mean, you can look at the M16 family of rifles to see that that is true. In the case of the MP5 magazines are of course legendary in their reliability. The one issue in my mind being that at 30 rounds they don't lock into the gun, but besides that, a very, very well-built magazine. At the back here we have our windows in order to witness how many rounds we have. So we have 10, 20, and then 30. So when you see a round down there, you know that you have a full 30 round magazine. Of course, utilizing the maglulas, or however the hell you say them, you can easily jam up MP5 mags, no problem. Very easy to load these particular magazines. The lowers are of course now made by H&K. Another annoyance, I know, It's all about importation, but these are changed from the typical auto lowers that you have. So if you want to have an automatic MP5K, it does require a little bit of conversion on your part because they don't directly swap over. It's an annoyance. I understand that the ATF had their rules. I don't understand. It's stupid. But when we talk about the lower is well designed, well built. We talk about the safety on the controls on the MP5. The safety has kind of always been a problem for a lot of people because when you have the gun up, the safety is just out of reach for your thumb. I mean, you can get it, but you kind of have to wrap it around weird. So a lot of people tend to run thumbs same side on the MP5, MP5K, or get like a more extended one. But again, you run into some issues there. I do wish that the safety on the MP5s could be just, you know, maybe a couple millimeters back or centimeters back just to get it precisely to the point I want it at. But again, that is me nitpicking the gun. But given the great selection of pistol caliber carbines out there right now, I think that is something that should possibly, I don't know, be changed, maybe an updated MP5 in some way. The biggest complaint with many of the MP5 type weapons is the trigger. The trigger on the MP5s is really not that great. So what we'll do here is we'll go ahead and, I guess it doesn't matter, we'll go ahead and we'll go set true together as we always do with Unchained Melody, played very softly to ensure that I don't get hit with copyright. All right, strap out that trigger right here. So we have a little bit of take up right there, hit our first wall, creep, 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 more creep, more creep. Then we have a release. Around 6-7 pounds, all right, the reset, pretty long, and then we hit our wall, mush, and shot around 6-7 pounds. It is not a great trigger. It has always been the weak point of the MP5, MP5K, and that is absolutely the case with this particular weapon. I do wish that there were better triggers out there. I know that there are companies working on them, but as far as reliability is concerned, I haven't seen it yet. When a reliable, good trigger comes out, I will definitely make a video on it, but the weak point for the MP5K is just a trigger. It is not just a great trigger at all, and especially compared to, like, here we go again, the SIG MPX, which has such a great trigger. I mean, it's an AR type trigger, so it can go so fast. It's a real bummer with kind of how much the MP5 trigger slows you down. So, bummer, I know. The grip on the SP5K is excellent. No complaints when it comes to the grip whatsoever. So, you know, again, if you need to change it, you can get different types of lowers and all that type of junk. Finally, moving to the very back here, we do have a brace from Gearhead Works. Gearhead Works is an awesome company. They sent this particular brace to me to try out on the SP5K. Very cool brace option from Gearhead Works. So what does it come down to? Well, with the SP5K, you have a really nostalgic, very cool gun, but ultimately you have a very expensive gun. So do I like the SP5K? Of course, I love it. I love the MP5. I love the MP5Ks. I think it's harder to justify the cost of this weapon, you know, around $2,700, when you have so many other good PCC and short-barreled rifle designs, or, you know, short ARs with brace designs out there that I think perform just as well. So if you really want an MP5, if you want an MP5K, and you just love those guns and you want the full HK package, I think that these will definitely hold their value. I think they'll be great collector's items, and I think they'll definitely scratch that itch for the MP5 crowd out there. But otherwise, I don't know that the cost really justifies it for the average guy who wants to buy something like this. So I'm gonna say, take a look at it. If you really want it, get it. But otherwise, I think there are some really good options out there. No matter what, H&K has done a phenomenal job making this. This is a true replica of the MP5K for the civilian market, and that is awesome that they did it. Next up, I would like an MP7 from HK that's made for civilians. We'll see if that ever happens. But in any case, the point is as cool as these guns are, if you don't have training, it doesn't matter. So if you haven't trained with this, you're still gonna suck with it. So get out there and get training. Actually shoot with your weapons. Make your mind the thing that's dangerous. Tons of great people out there to get training from. We have Bear Solutions, Esoteric, Cogworks, Haley Strategic, maybe my dad. Tons of great guys. Get out there, get that training, and become dangerous. Guys, thank you so much for watching. Tons of great new things coming. We got nothing else for you. Final bit of dad advice for you. It isn't the fall that matters, it's the recovery. Go ahead and chew on that for a little while. Guys, you know, if you have made it this far, that we're going to rep Survival Dispatch. Survival Dispatch is a company that has a website. On the website, you can subscribe to Survival Knowledge. Highly recommended that you do it. Survival information is just something that you should have. These are simple skills that humans used to know back in the day in order to survive in day-to-day life, but we've lost because we live in a technological society. So definitely go check them out, learn how to survive. And my final note to my Patreon people, thank you so much for making this channel what it is today. I love you guys. Take care of yourselves. I've got nothing else for you, for real this time.